Welcome to the film economy, where we exclusively analyze the business blueprint behind independent and low-budget films. We're here to break down the movie budgets, the box office analysis, and answer the big questions. How do small movies work? How do they make a profit? Let's find out.
Welcome to the film economy, where we go beyond the reviews to analyze the dollars and cents that power the film industry. We explore how iconic films become massive financial assets, shaping the market for years to come. First, let's get you set up with where to watch this movie. For those asking where to watch The Dark Knight 2008, it is consistently available for streaming with a subscription on Max. If you don't have that service, finding where to watch The Dark Knight 2008 is simple, as it's available to rent or own across all major digital storefronts like YouTube and Vudu. In the classic hit The Dark Knight 2008, starring Christian Bale as the tormented hero Bruce Wayne, also known as Batman, and directed by the legendary Christopher Nolan, best known for mind-bending blockbuster movies like Inception and Interstellar, audiences experienced a landmark cinematic event from the powerhouse production studio Warner Bros. Even years later, this film is still considered a genre-defining classic, a high watermark against which other superhero films are measured. Its impact on global cinema and its continued dominance on streaming platforms like HBO Max, Netflix, and Amazon Prime show its lasting power. Today, we are doing a complete movie breakdown of this cinematic masterpiece, a full movie explained that will peel back the layers of not just the story, but the monumental business strategy that made The Dark Knight 2008 a billion-dollar phenomenon. This isn't just a simple movie review. It's a deep dive into the film's incredible box office breakdown and the ambitious production budget that brought this dark and gritty vision to life. When The Dark Knight 2008 hit theaters on its release date of July 18, 2008, it wasn't just another summer movie. It was an earthquake. The cinematic landscape at the time was shifting dramatically. Just 2 months earlier, Marvel Studios, a key competitor studio, had launched its cinematic universe with Iron Man, a film that was witty, fun, and optimistic. Warner Bros., with Christopher Nolan at the helm, took a radically different path. The Dark Knight 2008 was not a lighthearted adventure. It was a dark, sprawling crime epic, a psychological thriller that just happened to feature a man in a bat suit. This distinction is crucial for any movie discussion about the film. It was less like its comic book contemporaries and more like similar movies such as Michael Mann's 1995 crime drama Heat. The intense cat-and-mouse dynamic between a relentless detective and a philosophical master criminal in that film is the clear blueprint for the conflict between Christian Bale as Batman and the unforgettable performance of Heath Ledger as the Joker. Christopher Nolan's directing style was the engine behind this unique tone. Having already rebooted the franchise with 2005's Batman Begins, he had established a world grounded in a believable reality. For The Dark Knight 2008, he doubled down, famously using IMAX cameras to capture the film's stunning action sequences, including the opening bank heist, which has become one of the most iconic movie scenes in modern history. Filmed primarily in Chicago, which provided the perfect Gothic sprawling backdrop for Gotham City, the film felt tangible and real. This commitment to practical effects and in-camera spectacle is a signature of the director, and it's a key reason why movie fans and film enthusiasts still hold The Dark Knight 2008 in such high regard. It's one of those rewatchable movies where you discover something new with every viewing, making it a true fan-favorite movie and a timeless movie for the ages. The plot summary revolves around Batman's alliance with District Attorney Harvey Dent, played by Aaron Eckhart, and Lieutenant Jim Gordon, played by Gary Oldman. Together, they are on the verge of cleaning up Gotham streets for good. But their success unleashes a new agent of chaos, the Joker, a nihilistic enigma with a mysterious past and a love for anarchy. The Joker's campaign of terror is designed not just to cause destruction, but to prove a philosophical point, that deep down everyone is as ugly as he is, and that society's rules are a fragile, pathetic joke. This central conflict pushes every character to their absolute limit. The cast was an ensemble of titans, with Christian Bale delivering a powerful performance as the lead actor, perfectly capturing the physical and emotional toll of his crusade. But the movie discussion is often dominated by Heath Ledger's transformative portrayal of the Joker, a role that posthumously earned him an Academy Award and is frequently cited in movie ranking lists as one of the greatest screen villains of all time. The incredible supporting cast, including Michael Caine as the ever-loyal Alfred and Morgan Freeman as Lucius Fox, provided the film with its moral and emotional anchor. Any full movie explained of The Dark Knight 2008 must acknowledge that the strength of these performances is what sells the film's high-stakes drama. Now, let's pivot from the narrative to the numbers. Behind every iconic movie scene is a calculated investment, and for The Dark Knight 2008, that investment was colossal. The production budget was estimated to be a staggering $185 million. To put that into perspective, its predecessor, Batman Begins, was made for around $150 million. This 23% budget increase was a clear signal of Warner Bros. Confidence in Christopher Nolan's vision and the franchise's potential. This wasn't just a sequel, it was an escalation in scope, ambition, and financial risk. This figure placed it firmly in the top tier of blockbuster filmmaking in 2008, competing with the budgets of established global franchises like James Bond. It even surpassed the budget of its main competitor that year, Iron Man, which was produced for a relatively lean $140 million. This heavy capital injection was a strategic bet that a more ambitious, larger-scale film would yield exponentially higher returns. The financing structure for a film of this magnitude was almost certainly 100% studio, financed by Warner Bros. Pictures. As the sole owner of the DC Comics IP, the studio had every incentive to retain full control and capitalize on all downstream revenue. There was no need for complex co-production deals or external equity financing. This was a blue-chip asset, and the studio's strategy was to maximize its shareholder value by funding it internally. This massive capital outlay was predicated on an extremely optimistic global gross forecast. The studio wasn't just hoping to make a profit, they were projecting a billion-dollar cultural event. Every dollar of that $185 million budget was a calculated risk designed to maximize the potential ROI, return on investment. The studio essentially treated the film not as a single product, but as a strategic investment to elevate the entire Batman IP's equity stake valuation. From this financial standpoint, the primary monetization streams were clear and traditional for the era, but executed on an unprecedented scale. The first and most critical was theatrical exhibition. The revenue from domestic and international box office receipts would be the primary driver for recouping the massive initial investment. The studio's global gross forecast would have been meticulously modeled, projecting audience turnout, ticket price averages, and performance in key international markets, especially after Batman Begins proved the global appeal of Nolan's take. Secondly, the home entertainment market in 2008 was incredibly lucrative. DVD and Blu-ray sales represented a massive, high-margin revenue stream that could potentially match or even exceed theatrical profits for a film this popular. Finally, long-term television and streaming rights would provide a steady, reliable income for years, even decades, after its initial release. Every one of these streams was designed to ensure the film's profitability metrics were not just positive, but exceptional. The success of The Dark Knight 2008 would do more than just generate profit. It would dramatically inflate the equity stake valuation of the entire DC brand at Warner Bros., creating a halo effect for future projects, and proving that comic book adaptations could be both commercially dominant and critically revered. The initial investment, while large, was a strategic play for long-term franchise dominance. A film of epic scale is ultimately a story about people, and the legacy of The Dark Knight 2008 rests squarely on the shoulders of the phenomenal actors who inhabited its dark and dangerous world. The cast of The Dark Knight 2008 is more than just a list of names. It was a perfectly assembled ensemble, a collection of talent where every single performer understood the grave, operatic, and realistic tone director Christopher Nolan was meticulously crafting. Our movie breakdown continues by examining the incredible artists who brought Gotham's heroes, villains, and tragic figures to life, beginning with the conflicted soul at the very center of the storm. Christian Bale returned to the dual role of Bruce Wayne and Batman, and his performance is the stoic, unwavering anchor of the entire film. Having already laid the complex psychological groundwork in Batman Begins, Bale brought a familiar intensity, a simmering, barely contained rage that defined his version of the character. For many movie fans, his portrayal is definitive because it so perfectly captures the inherent duality: the vapid, careless billionaire persona that serves as a mask for the public, and the brutal, terrifyingly focused vigilante who operates in the shadows. Christian Bale as Batman is the undeniable cornerstone of this trilogy, and his established presence provided a crucial point of stability for the absolute chaos that was about to be unleashed upon both the character and the audience. A look at his actor filmography reveals why he was the perfect choice. Bale was already renowned for his incredible physical and psychological transformations in previous movies like The Machinist and American Psycho, films still available on streaming platforms like Hulu and HBO Max. This history of deep immersion made him uniquely suited for a lead role that demanded immense physical discipline and the portrayal of profound internal conflict. Of course, any full movie explained of The Dark Knight 2008, any serious discussion among cinema fans or film enthusiasts, will inevitably and rightfully center on the performance that didn't just steal the show but redefined cinematic villainy for a generation. Heath Ledger as the Joker. When the initial casting news broke, it was met with a surprising amount of skepticism from corners of the fan community. At the time, Ledger was celebrated for his sensitive, dramatic work in films like his Oscar-nominated turn in Brokeback Mountain. Few could have possibly predicted the raw, anarchic, and genuinely terrifying energy he would bring to the clown prince of crime. Heath Ledger's Joker transcended the concept of a comic book villain. He became a walking, talking agent of chaos, a terrifyingly lucid exploration of nihilistic philosophy. It was a completely transformative performance that went far beyond what any audience expected, earning him a posthumous Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor and cementing his character as a permanent fixture in our cultural lexicon. Critics and fans still compare his monumental performance to other all-time great antagonists, arguing it rivals the impact of Anthony Hopkins as Hannibal Lecter in The Silence of the Lambs. But the absolute brilliance of the character list extends deep into the supporting cast, creating a rich tapestry of human drama that elevates the entire film. Aaron Eckhart's portrayal of Harvey Dent is the tragic beating heart of The Dark Knight 2008. He is introduced as Gotham's charismatic White Knight, the legitimate inspirational hero that Bruce Wayne believes can one day make the Batman obsolete. Eckhart masterfully charts Dent's journey from idealism to obsession and finally to a horrifying fall from grace. His transformation into the vengeful, disfigured Two-Face is both shocking and deeply heartbreaking, making him one of the most compelling tragic figures in any blockbuster movie. The ensemble is further solidified by a trio of veteran actors who ground the film in a sense of history and gravitas. Gary Oldman as Lieutenant Jim Gordon is the franchise's unwavering moral compass, a fundamentally good man forced to make impossible choices in a hopelessly corrupt city. Michael Caine provides the film's warmth and wisdom as Alfred Pennyworth, serving not just as Bruce Wayne's butler but as his surrogate father and conscience. And Morgan Freeman adds a touch of pragmatic genius and wry humor as Lucius Fox, the cue to Batman's James Bond. This incredible collection of talent is the reason The Dark Knight 2008 remains one of the most rewatchable movies and a timeless movie that continues to captivate audiences worldwide. From a financial perspective, assembling the cast of The Dark Knight 2008 was a sophisticated exercise in capital allocation and risk management, centered around one of the most powerful tools in Hollywood finance: back-end participation. When analyzing the costs, it's not enough to just look at upfront salaries. The real story lies in the complex compensation packages designed to align the interests of the stars with the studio. For a project with a colossal $185 million budget, managing upfront costs is paramount. Lavish, flat-fee salaries for every single actor could cause the budget to spiral out of control. The solution is back-end participation, a profit-sharing model where a star agrees to a lower upfront salary in exchange for a percentage of the film's revenues. This is the cornerstone of A-list movie financing. It transforms a salaried employee into a strategic partner, deeply invested in the film's global success. Let's break down the likely structure, starting with the film's anchor Christian Bale. As the returning star of a successful franchise, his negotiating position was incredibly strong. His upfront actor salaries for The Dark Knight 2008 were likely in the range of an estimated $10 million. However, the most significant part of his deal would have been the back-end participation. It is highly probable that Bale's contract included points on the first dollar gross. This is the most coveted form of profit sharing, where an actor receives a percentage of every dollar the studio receives from theaters, starting from day one, before any deductions for marketing, distribution, or even production costs are made. A deal like this might grant him anywhere from 5% to 10% of the gross. On a film that ultimately grossed over $1 billion, this back-end participation clause would have turned his $10 million salary into a total payday of over $60 million. For the studio, this structure is brilliant. It conserves cash during the expensive production phase and creates a powerful incentive. The greater the star power ROI Bale delivers by promoting the film and drawing audiences, the more he personally earns. It perfectly aligns his financial goals with Warner Bros.' bottom line. Now, let's consider the case of Heath Ledger, which represents a fascinating intersection of casting risk and potential reward. As a critically acclaimed actor but not yet a proven opener of 150M-plus blockbusters, his deal would have been structured differently. His upfront actor salaries would have been more modest, likely in the estimated range of $5 to $7 million. The studio was making a calculated bet on talent over proven box office history. It is plausible that his deal also included a form of back-end participation, but likely a less aggressive one than Bale's. For instance, it might have been based on net profits rather than gross, or smaller percentage points tied to specific box office milestones. The ultimate financial story here is that the star power ROI on Ledger's performance was infinite. The cultural impact and marketing buzz generated by his iconic portrayal were worth hundreds of millions of dollars in earned media, a value that far surpassed any compensation package. The casting risk the studio took on paid off on a scale that no financial model could have ever predicted, becoming a key driver of the film's billion-dollar success. The rest of the high-profile supporting cast, including Aaron Eckhart, Michael Caine, and Gary Oldman, likely commanded significant but more traditional upfront actor salaries, perhaps in the low single-digit millions each. For these roles, the studio's strategy is typically cost containment and predictability. While essential to the film's quality, they are not the primary drivers of opening weekend ticket sales, so fixed-fee contracts without extensive back-end participation make the most financial sense. This creates a tiered compensation structure. A massive, incentive-laden deal for the franchise lead, a high-potential bet on the key antagonist, and stable, predictable costs for the prestigious supporting players. This entire financial architecture, built around the strategic use of back-end participation, is a masterclass in blockbuster filmmaking. A final profitability analysis shows that by shifting a significant portion of talent compensation from a fixed upfront cost to a variable bonus tied to success, Warner Bros. Was able to manage an enormous budget, mitigate risk, and ensure that their most important creative partners were fully motivated to help turn The Dark Knight 2008 into one of the most profitable cinematic assets of all time. A great cast can bring a story to life, but it's the story itself, the architecture of the narrative, the depth of its themes, and the power of its conclusion that makes a film immortal. The Dark Knight 2008 is celebrated not just for its action, but for its mind-bending philosophical screenplay. Today, we are diving deep into the narrative with a full story breakdown and narrative breakdown of this cinematic masterpiece. We'll explore the major plot points, discuss the film's powerful movie themes, and finally, we will deliver what so many of you have searched for, the complete The Dark Knight ending explained. Be warned, this section will contain massive spoilers, so if you haven't seen this classic, pause now and go watch it. The story summary of The Dark Knight 2008 operates on the principle of escalation. At the start of the film, Batman, alongside Lieutenant Gordon and District Attorney Harvey Dent, has Gotham's organized crime syndicates on the ropes. They are winning. But their success creates a vacuum, and into that vacuum steps a new kind of criminal, the Joker. This isn't a mob boss motivated by greed. He is an agent of chaos, a terrorist who wants to prove a point about the fragility of society's rules. The narrative breakdown shows a plot that is less a traditional three-act structure and more a series of escalating moral tests orchestrated by the Joker. He robs a mob bank not just for the money, but to insert himself into their world. He then systematically dismantles their power structure while simultaneously targeting Gotham's symbols of hope, Commissioner Loeb, Judge Cirillo, and Harvey Dent himself. The screenplay analysis reveals a script written by Jonathan and Christopher Nolan that is relentlessly intelligent. It's a crime thriller in the vein of similar movies like C7N or The Silence of the Lambs, where the heroes are always one step behind a brilliant, almost omniscient antagonist. This relentless narrative pace has sparked endless discussion and countless fan theories over the years, which is a testament to the script's rich detail. One of the most persistent The Dark Knight 2008 fan theories is that Heath Ledger's Joker is a former military intelligence or special forces operative. The evidence fans cite is compelling. His proficiency with a wide range of firearms and explosives, his strategic and tactical brilliance in planning complex operations like the hospital bombing and the MCU transport ambush, and his ability to psychologically manipulate and read everyone he encounters. His chilling line, "Do I really look like a guy with a plan?" is seen as the ultimate deception. He isn't an agent of chaos, he is a master of controlled, weaponized chaos. This theory adds another layer to the character, suggesting his nihilism is born from seeing the worst of humanity firsthand. This level of audience engagement, where viewers dissect scenes for clues, is a hallmark of truly brilliant franchise-level storytelling. The central movie themes explored in The Dark Knight 2008 are what elevate it from a simple blockbuster to a profound piece of art. The primary theme is order versus chaos, embodied by the ideological war between Batman and the Joker. Batman believes in rules, structure, and that people are inherently good. The Joker believes rules are an artificial construct and that deep down, everyone is as savage as he is. The infamous ferry scene is the ultimate test of this theme, a perfect social experiment where the Joker forces two groups of people, civilians and convicts, to decide whether to blow each other up to survive. Their ultimate refusal to do so is Batman's one tragic victory in the film. The second major theme is sacrifice. Every hero in the film is forced to sacrifice something. Gordon fakes his death, Rachel sacrifices her life, Harvey Dent sacrifices his morality, and ultimately Batman sacrifices his reputation and his status as a hero. This brings us to the film's powerful and often debated conclusion, so let's get into the Dark Knight ending explained. The twist ending isn't a single gotcha moment but a slow, gut-wrenching moral decision. After the Joker corrupts Harvey Dent and turns him into the vengeful Two-Face, Dent goes on a rampage, judging those he holds responsible for Rachel's death with the flip of a coin. In the final confrontation, Batman tackles Dent off a ledge to save Gordon's son, and Dent falls to his death. At this moment, Batman and Gordon face a terrible choice. Harvey Dent was Gotham's symbol of hope, the White Knight who proved the system could work. If the city learns that their hero became a murderer, the hope he inspired will die, and everything they fought for will be lost. The Joker will have won a posthumous victory. In a moment of profound sacrifice, Batman tells Gordon to blame him for the murders Dent committed. He will become the villain so that Harvey Dent can remain the hero in the public's eye. The final montage shows Gordon destroying the bat signal as Batman flees, now a hunted fugitive. The ending is not triumphant, it's tragic and deeply complex. It posits that sometimes, a lie is necessary to protect the greater good, a controversial idea that leaves the audience questioning the very nature of heroism. Unlike many films in its genre, The Dark Knight 2008 has no celebratory post-credits scene, a deliberate choice by Christopher Nolan to let the weight of that dark, ambiguous ending settle, ensuring its themes and consequences linger long after the credits roll. From an investor's standpoint, the screenplay for The Dark Knight 2008 is not just a creative document, it is the foundational asset upon which a billion-dollar enterprise was built. The financial journey of this story begins with the script development cost. For a project of this scale, with A-list screenwriters like Jonathan and Christopher Nolan, this is a significant upfront investment. Based on Writers Guild of America (WGA) benchmarks and the premium fees commanded by proven franchise builders, the total script development cost, encompassing everything from the initial outline and multiple drafts to extensive polishes and research, could easily range from an estimated $2 million to over $4 million. This capital is allocated to ensure the narrative blueprint is flawless. A studio like Warner Bros. Views this not as an expense, but as a crucial investment in de-risking a $185 million production. A weak script is the single greatest point of failure for any blockbuster, so a multi-million-dollar script budget is considered a necessary down payment on a positive story development ROI. This investment is the seed capital that directly influences the final franchise IP worth. However, the story of The Dark Knight 2008 was packed with significant creative risk. A financial analyst would identify several narrative choices that bucked conventional blockbuster trends. First, the film's relentlessly dark and serious tone. Second, the morally ambiguous and downbeat ending where the hero becomes a pariah. Third, the on-screen death of a primary character and love interest, Rachel Dawes. And finally, the extreme psychological intensity of the Joker. These elements could have easily alienated a mass audience accustomed to more triumphant escapist fare. This is where we must analyze the risk-return ratio. The risk was that the film's intellectual and grim nature would limit its box office potential to a core fanbase, failing to achieve the global four-quadrant appeal necessary to be profitable. The return, however, was the potential to create something unique, critically acclaimed, and culturally resonant that would stand the test of time. The studio's gamble was that audiences were ready for a more mature and complex superhero story. This high risk-return ratio paid off on an unimaginable scale. The very creative risks they took became the film's greatest marketing hooks, generating immense critical praise and word of mouth that propelled it to a billion-dollar gross, massively increasing the entire franchise equity valuation of Nolan's Batman universe. This brings us to the story's sequel potential score, which I would rate as exceptionally high, but with a complex asterisk. The story concludes on a massive cliffhanger. Batman is a fugitive, hunted by the very city he protects. This narrative hook created enormous demand for a third film, virtually guaranteeing a massive opening weekend for a sequel. This powerful narrative setup is a direct driver of long-term content monetization. However, the story also definitively concluded the arcs of its two primary villains. The Joker's fate is left open, but Heath Ledger's tragic passing made his return impossible, and Harvey Dent Two-Face is dead. This meant a sequel couldn't simply repeat the formula. It had to introduce a new, compelling antagonist capable of challenging Batman on a similar scale. While a creative challenge, the financial value of that cliffhanger was immense. It ensured that the audience was not just satisfied, but deeply invested in seeing the conclusion of Bruce Wayne's journey, which is the ultimate goal for increasing franchise IP worth. Ultimately, the narrative structure of The Dark Knight 2008 is a masterclass in building IP valuation. The story is so compelling and filled with iconic moments that it opens up a vast content monetization pipeline. The philosophical debates, the Joker's unforgettable lines, and the tragic fall of Harvey Dent are not just plot points, they are monetizable pieces of content. They drive merchandise sales from Why So Serious T-shirts to high-end collectibles, inspire spin-off media like video games, and ensure the film has an incredibly long shelf life on streaming and digital platforms. The story's depth makes it endlessly rewatchable, generating consistent long-tail revenue years after its theatrical run. A great story doesn't just sell tickets for one movie. It creates an emotional connection with an audience that can be monetized for decades. The screenplay of The Dark Knight 2008 did exactly that, transforming a comic book character into a multi-billion-dollar cultural and financial asset, solidifying its franchise equity valuation as one of the most valuable properties in the studio's portfolio beyond the powerful story and iconic characters. The Dark Knight 2008 is a visual triumph, a masterclass in cinematic storytelling that immerses you completely in the gritty, sprawling world of Gotham City. The film's look and feel are just as important as its script, creating an atmosphere of urban decay and high-stakes tension. Today, we're going behind the scenes to explore the groundbreaking cinematography and the surprisingly practical visual effects that made this film a benchmark for blockbuster visuals. We'll break down some of the most memorable scenes and examine the deliberate visual style that director Christopher Nolan and his director of photography, Wally Pfister, meticulously crafted. For movie lovers who appreciate the art of filmmaking, this is a deep dive into the techniques that created a modern classic. The first thing any discussion of the cinematography in The Dark Knight 2008 must address is its revolutionary use of IMAX cameras. At a time when most blockbusters were shot on standard 35mm film, Christopher Nolan made the bold decision to film key action sequences with massive, cumbersome, and incredibly high-resolution 70mm IMAX cameras. This was a game-changer. When you watch scenes like the opening bank heist or the stunning Hong Kong skyscraper sequence on an IMAX screen, the aspect ratio opens up, filling your entire field of vision. The clarity, the depth, and the scale are breathtaking. This choice of camera gear was not a gimmick. It was a deliberate artistic decision to create an unparalleled sense of immersion. The director of photography, Wally Pfister, who won an Oscar for his work on Nolan's Inception, deservedly received a nomination for his work here. His use of cool metallic blues and sterile fluorescent lighting for Gotham cityscape, contrasted with the chaotic, jarring handheld camera work during the Joker's scenes, defined the film's entire aesthetic. What makes the visual style of The Dark Knight 2008 so enduring is its commitment to realism. Nolan famously prefers practical effects over computer-generated imagery wherever possible. The most famous example, of course, is the spectacular truck flip in the middle of Wall Street. In an era where a shot like that would almost certainly be created with CGI, Nolan's team actually flipped a real full-size semi-truck, rigging it with a massive piston and capturing the stunt with multiple IMAX cameras. This dedication to in-camera action gives the film a tangible, weighty feel that is often missing from modern, CGI-heavy blockbusters. The hospital demolition is another one of the film's most incredible VFX scenes. It was a real decommissioned building in Chicago that was rigged with precisely timed explosives. The image of Heath Ledger's Joker walking away as the structure collapses behind him in a controlled, yet chaotic, demolition is one of the most memorable in modern cinema. This preference for practical stunts is a key piece of behind-the-scenes trivia that fan-favorite movies like this are built on. Of course, the film isn't entirely devoid of digital enhancement. The visual effects team, led by VFX supervisor Nick Davis, used CGI seamlessly and judiciously to augment the practical work. The most significant CGI breakdown would focus on the creation of Harvey Dent's Two-Face persona. The gruesome, digitally created facial wounds were a marvel of visual effects, seamlessly blended with Aaron Eckhart's live-action performance. But even here, the focus was on realism rather than fantasy. The lighting design and scene composition in these moments were carefully crafted to make the digital effect feel as grounded and medically plausible as possible. Other uses of CGI included wire removal, background extensions for the Gotham skyline, and enhancing the explosive impact of certain action sequences. However, compared to its contemporaries like Iron Man or the Transformers films, the amount of digital intervention in The Dark Knight 2008 is remarkably low. Nolan's philosophy was clear. Use technology to enhance reality, not to replace it. This approach to cinematic excellence is a major reason why the film's visuals have aged so incredibly well, feeling just as visceral and impressive today as they did in 2008. From a financial and investment perspective, the visual strategy of The Dark Knight 2008 is a brilliant case study in maximizing spectacle while maintaining remarkable cost efficiency. The core of this strategy can be analyzed through the lens of ROI versus visual complexity. While the film delivered some of the most memorable blockbuster visuals of its era, it did so with a surprisingly restrained approach to expensive digital effects. Let's start with the estimated VFX budget. For a film with a total production cost of $185 million, industry benchmarks would suggest a visual effects budget of anywhere from $50 to $70 million for a typical tentpole feature. However, based on Nolan's practical first methodology, it's estimated that the VFX budget for The Dark Knight 2008 was likely in the more conservative range of $30 to $40 million, or roughly 16–22% of the total budget. This represents a significant saving compared to its peers, which often see VFX costs climb to 30–40% of their total spend. This is the first key indicator of a highly efficient production. This efficiency becomes even clearer when we analyze the CGI cost per minute. For a VFX-heavy blockbuster like a Marvel or Transformers film, the cost for a minute of fully rendered, complex CGI can range from an estimated $1 million to over $3 million. The Dark Knight 2008 has very few scenes that fall into this category. The most significant is the Two-Face transformation. If we estimate that there are perhaps 5–7 minutes of complex Two-Face screen time, even at a premium rate, the total cost for the film's most intensive digital effect would be in the $10–15 million range. The rest of the VFX work, such as wire removals and digital compositing, is far less expensive. By contrast, a film composed of wall-to-wall digital characters and environments can burn through its VFX budget at an astonishing rate. Nolan's approach demonstrated a masterful understanding of ROI versus visual complexity. He invested heavily in stunts and practical effects that delivered a massive visual impact for a fixed, predictable cost, rather than entering the unpredictable and often spiraling world of heavy digital rendering. This smart spending directly contributed to higher profit margins on the back end. The savings in production then flow into post-production spending. While post-production is always a significant cost center, the practical first approach simplifies and shortens parts of the process. With less time spent on digital rendering and approvals for complex CGI scenes, the post-production burn rate, the daily cost of keeping editors, sound designers, and colorists working, can be better controlled. The major costs here would have been Wally Pfister's extensive color grading process to achieve the film's signature cool, metallic look, and the monumental task of sound design and mixing led by Richard King, who won an Oscar for his work. The overall post-production spending likely fell within the industry standard of $20–25 million, but the key is that the timeline wasn't constantly being extended by VFX delays. This demonstrates a high degree of capital allocation efficiency. The money was spent on elements that had the greatest on-screen impact without creating a cascade of costly post-production challenges. This entire strategy of fiscal discipline and creative focus has a profound long-term effect on the film's cumulative earnings. By keeping the initial production costs relatively contained for a film of its scale, the path to profitability was much shorter. The film crossed its break-even point faster, meaning it started generating pure profit for the studio sooner. This initial success then snowballed. The film's critical acclaim, partly driven by its grounded and realistic visuals, fueled massive DVD and Blu-ray sales. Its timeless, non-dated look has made it an evergreen asset in the streaming era, continually licensed for high fees by platforms like Netflix and HBO Max. Every dollar saved during production, because of the smart ROI versus visual complexity strategy, is a dollar that has been compounded many times over through years of sustained revenue. The massive cumulative earnings of The Dark Knight 2008, which are estimated to be well over $500 million in pure profit for Warner Bros. Over its lifetime, are a direct result of these intelligent and efficient production decisions. It proved that you don't need the most complex visuals to get the best return, you need the most impactful ones. There are sounds in cinema that are as iconic as the images they accompany. The two-note shark theme from Jaws, the triumphant fanfare of Star Wars, and the tense, singular, driving cello note that defines the villain of The Dark Knight 2008. The music of this film is not just background noise, it is the story's nervous system, its beating heart, and its chaotic soul. Today, we're diving into the brilliant soundtrack of The Dark Knight 2008, exploring the iconic score crafted by two of Hollywood's greatest composers. We'll break down the memorable themes, discuss the music-driven storytelling, and look at why the official soundtrack, OST, remains a fan favorite on streaming platforms like Spotify and Apple Music over a decade later. This is an exploration of the sound that defined a masterpiece. The iconic score for The Dark Knight 2008 was a unique collaboration between two legendary composers, Hans Zimmer and James Newton Howard. They had previously worked together on Batman Begins, establishing the musical language of Nolan's universe. Hans Zimmer, the score composer known for his powerful, percussive, and electronic-infused work on films like Gladiator and Inception, took on the monumental task of scoring the Joker. James Newton Howard, known for his lush, emotional, and melodic orchestrations in films like The Sixth Sense and The Hunger Games, focused on the heroic and tragic arc of Harvey Dent. This division of labor was a stroke of genius. The entire soundtrack becomes a battle between their two distinct styles, mirroring the film's central conflict between chaos and order. There are very few licensed songs in the movie. The emotional heavy lifting is done almost entirely by the original thematic score. The centerpiece of the entire soundtrack is, without question, the Joker's theme, a track titled Why So Serious. It is one of the most unsettling and effective villain themes ever composed. In a fascinating piece of music production trivia, Hans Zimmer wanted to create a sound that was completely unhinged and abrasive. He famously used razor blades on cello strings to create a grating single sustained note that slowly builds in intensity and dissonance. It's a sound that puts you on edge, a musical representation of a nail being dragged down a chalkboard. This theme is deployed with terrifying precision throughout the film, often starting subtly and building to a crescendo of industrial noise and distorted electronics. It is the sound of pure anarchy, and it is a massive reason why Heath Ledger's performance feels so viscerally threatening. This track is one of the most popular from the soundtrack list and has achieved massive streaming success on its own. In stark contrast, James Newton Howard's themes for Harvey Dent are built around noble brass and sweeping strings, representing the hope and heroism he embodies. As the film progresses and Dent's world unravels, Howard masterfully corrupts his own theme, twisting the heroic melodies into something dissonant and tragic. Batman's own theme, established in the first film, is a simple, powerful two-note motif that is more about brute force and presence than traditional heroism. The genius of this cinematic music is how Zimmer and Howard weave these themes together. In key scenes, you can hear the Joker's chaotic noise trying to drown out Dent's heroic score, creating a musical battle for the soul of Gotham. The soundtrack acclaim was universal, earning a Grammy Award for Best Score Soundtrack Album. Even the film's trailer music was built around these powerful themes, helping to establish the movie's dark and serious tone long before it hit theaters. For any fan of movie scores, the OST of The Dark Knight 2008 is an essential listen, a masterclass in how music can be an active participant in music-driven storytelling. From a financial perspective, a film's soundtrack is not merely an artistic element. It is a distinct intellectual property, a separate and highly valuable asset with its own dedicated revenue streams. The creation and monetization of The Dark Knight 2008's score was a sophisticated financial operation. It begins with the music budget. For a blockbuster of this scale, the music budget is a significant line item, typically representing 1–2% of the total production cost. In this case, that would place the estimated music budget for The Dark Knight 2008 in the range of $2 to $3.5 million. This budget covers several key areas. The largest portion would be the composer fee for Hans Zimmer and James Newton Howard. As two of the most in-demand A-list composers in the world, their combined fee could easily have been between $1.5 to $2 million. The remaining budget would cover orchestration costs, studio time, musician salaries, and the music supervisor budget, although the latter would be minimal on a film that relies so heavily on an original score. A critical financial decision in any film is the approach to music rights acquisition. A production can either license well-known, pre-existing songs or commission an entirely original score. Licensing a single hit pop song for a key scene can cost anywhere from an estimated $50,000 to over $250,000. Building a soundtrack of popular songs, like in Guardians of the Galaxy, can lead to a music budget that swells to over $10 million. By choosing to create an almost entirely original score, the producers of The Dark Knight 2008 made an incredibly cost-effective decision. They paid a high premium for the best composers, but they avoided a cascade of expensive licensing fees. More importantly, by creating an original score, the studio Warner Bros. Owns the music outright. This means they control 100% of the asset and its future monetization, which is crucial for maximizing long-term value through royalty income and sync licensing. This ownership is where the real long-term financial strategy comes into play. The first major revenue stream is the album sales ROI. The official soundtrack was a commercial success, selling hundreds of thousands of copies both physically and digitally. With a production cost of around $3 million and assuming a healthy profit margin on each album sale, the soundtrack likely recouped its entire budget and moved into profitability from sales and streaming alone. But this is just the beginning. The most lucrative and powerful monetization tool for a soundtrack is sync licensing. This is the process of licensing a specific piece of music for use in other media, movie trailers, television commercials, video games, or even other films. A track as iconic as Why So Serious becomes an incredibly valuable asset. A company wanting to use just 30 seconds of that track in a high-profile car commercial or a video game trailer could be charged a sync licensing fee ranging from an estimated $100,000 to over $500,000 for a single use. This is high-margin, almost pure profit revenue. Over the years, the potential for sync licensing deals on the various themes from The Dark Knight 2008 could generate millions of dollars, creating a powerful ongoing revenue stream. Beyond active licensing, there is the long, steady stream of passive royalty income. Every time the soundtrack is streamed on Spotify, purchased on iTunes, played on the radio, or used in a television broadcast of the film, the studio earns a small payment. While individually tiny, these millions of microtransactions add up to a significant and continuous source of revenue that can last for decades. This demonstrates the power of cross-platform revenue, where a single asset earns money across dozens of different platforms simultaneously. The royalty income from The Dark Knight 2008's score is a perfect example of a long-tail financial asset. Furthermore, the score's themes provide immense franchise synergy. The established musical motifs can be used in future DC projects, video games, and marketing materials, reinforcing the brand identity without the cost of developing new music. In conclusion, the investment in an original, high-quality score for The Dark Knight 2008 was a brilliant financial decision. It was not just a creative choice. It was the creation of a valuable studio-owned intellectual property that continues to generate high-margin sync licensing fees and consistent royalty income, making it a quietly powerful contributor to the film's staggering cumulative profitability. The life of a truly iconic film extends far beyond the movie theater. It lives on in the hearts of fans, in online discussions, and in the tangible world of collectibles and memorabilia. For a cultural phenomenon like The Dark Knight 2008, the fan engagement was just as explosive as the action on screen. The film didn't just have viewers, it created a global community of dedicated followers. Today, we're exploring the incredible world of official merchandise and the powerful wave of social media buzz that turned The Dark Knight 2008 into a permanent fixture of pop culture. From high-end action figures to viral fan campaigns and incredible cosplay, this is the story of how a movie becomes a movement. The merchandising campaign for The Dark Knight 2008 was a massive undertaking designed to capture the imagination of every type of fan. For serious collectors, there were premium, limited edition releases from companies like Hot Toys, who produced stunningly realistic 6-scale action figures of Batman and the Joker that are still highly sought-after franchise collectibles today. These weren't just toys, they were pieces of art. For the broader audience, toy aisles were filled with a wide range of action figures from Mattel, allowing kids and fans to recreate the film's epic battles. The character designs, especially the Joker's unique and terrifying look, were perfect for merchandising. The demand for Joker-related items from masks to themed apparel was unprecedented, showing the immense pop culture impact of Heath Ledger's performance. The merchandise hype was also fueled by an array of other products, including detailed vehicle replicas of the Batmobile, the Tumbler, and the Batpod, as well as an endless supply of movie posters, t-shirts, and video games. But the real magic of The Dark Knight 2008's legacy lies in the organic, grassroots fan engagement that erupted around the film. Long before the era of TikTok challenges, the film's viral marketing campaign, which included alternate reality games ARGs like Why So Serious, got fans deeply involved in the world of Gotham months before the movie's release. This campaign was a masterclass in building social media buzz. After the film came out, the internet exploded. The Joker's quotes became instant memes that are still used today. The level of fan art inspired by the movie was, and still is, extraordinary, with artists around the world sharing their interpretations of the film's iconic characters. This organic creativity is a clear sign that a film has transcended entertainment and become a genuine cultural touchstone. Perhaps the most visible form of this fan engagement is in the world of cosplay. At fan conventions like San Diego Comic-Con, the years following 2008 saw a massive surge in fans dressing up as Heath Ledger's Joker. The costume with its purple suit, green vest, and terrifying makeup became instantly recognizable and has remained one of the most popular and enduring cosplay choices for over a decade. This level of participation is a powerful indicator of a film's deep connection with its audience. When fans are so inspired that they spend their own time and money to literally become the characters, it creates a self-perpetuating marketing machine. This passionate fan culture, from collecting official merchandise to creating viral content, is a key reason why The Dark Knight 2008 is not just a movie, but a living, breathing part of modern fandom. standing alongside massive franchises like Star Wars and the Marvel Cinematic Universe in its ability to inspire and engage. From a financial perspective, a Blockbuster's merchandise program is a separate, high-margin business vertical that can rival the profitability of the film itself. The strategy behind The Dark Knight 2008's merchandising empire is a textbook example of how to leverage a powerful intellectual property. The entire business model is built on the concept of licensing and royalties. A studio like Warner Bros. Typically does not manufacture the toys, t-shirts, or video games themselves. Instead, they license the rights to use their characters and logos to third-party companies like Mattel for toys or Warner Bros. Interactive for games. In exchange, the studio receives a licensed product royalty on every single item sold. This is an incredibly efficient, low-risk business model. The studio doesn't have to worry about manufacturing, distribution, or inventory. They simply collect checks. The financial power of this model is staggering. A typical licensed product royalty rate for a major studio ranges from 8% to as high as 15% of the wholesale price of a product. Let's apply this to The Dark Knight 2008. Consider the projected sales for just the action figures line in the year following the film's release. Given the movie's billion-dollar success, it is entirely plausible that the branded toy revenue at the retail level could have easily exceeded an estimated $100 million globally. If Warner Bros. Was earning a conservative 10% licensed product royalty on the wholesale price, which is roughly 50% of retail, this single product category would have generated an estimated $5 million in pure high-margin profit for the studio. Now expand that across dozens of other categories: apparel, video games, a massive revenue driver, collectibles, costumes, and more. The cumulative licensing income from the film could have realistically generated an estimated $50 million in its first year alone, a phenomenal return on an asset they didn't even have to manufacture. A crucial component of this strategy is securing strong retail partnerships. The success of a merchandise line is heavily dependent on its visibility and availability. For The Dark Knight 2008, securing deals with global retail giants like Walmart, Target, and Amazon was non-negotiable. These retail partnership revenue deals ensure that the products are placed in front of millions of consumers. Getting premium shelf space in a store like Walmart is a multi-million-dollar negotiation in itself, but it guarantees a massive volume of sales. The studio's consumer products division would have worked for months, even years, in advance of the film's release to secure these deals, providing retailers with early looks at character designs and marketing plans to generate excitement and secure large initial orders. The synergy is powerful. The movie's massive marketing budget drives traffic to the retailers, and the products on the shelves act as a constant advertisement for the movie. This entire financial ecosystem is fueled by what can only be described as fan-driven ROI. The organic, passionate engagement of the fan community is the most powerful and cost-effective marketing tool in existence. Every time a fan shares a meme of the Joker, posts a picture of their cosplay, or tweets about their new Hot Toys collectible, they are providing free advertising for the entire product line. This fan-driven ROI is incalculable. It creates a level of authenticity and word-of-mouth excitement that a studio's marketing department simply cannot buy. The social media buzz doesn't just sell movie tickets. It directly translates into merchandise sales. The more the film permeates pop culture, the more desirable the associated products become. This also opens the door for lucrative cross-brand monetization. A great example is the Lego Batman line, which exploded in popularity following the Nolan films. This partnership allows Warner Bros. To collect a licensed product royalty from one of the biggest toy companies in the world, tapping into an entirely new market. In essence, the studio makes a massive investment in creating a beloved film, and the fan-driven ROI ensures that the investment pays dividends for years to come through a vast and highly profitable merchandising program. Turning every fan's passion into a reliable and ever-growing stream of revenue, the official trailer for The Dark Knight 2008, dropping with teaser release moments that sparked massive fan buzz, set the stage for a premiere event rivaling any competitor's press tour excitement. While the innovative social media campaign built theatrical release hype across the globe. A great movie can fail without a great marketing plan, and the campaign to launch this film was as audacious and brilliant as the movie itself. It wasn't just about selling tickets. It was about creating a cultural event that audiences felt they had to be a part of. Today, we're breaking down the legendary marketing and distribution strategy that took The Dark Knight 2008 from a highly anticipated sequel to a record-shattering billion-dollar global phenomenon, culminating in its massive worldwide release. The marketing for The Dark Knight 2008 began with one of the most effective teaser release campaigns in modern history. The first image released was a defaced Batman symbol, scarred with the iconic Joker smile. It was mysterious, unsettling, and it got fans talking. Then came the first movie trailer. Instead of a traditional preview, it was the entire opening bank heist sequence, released as a prologue in IMAX theaters months before the film. This was a bold move that showcased the film's practical effects, gritty tone, and most importantly, gave audiences their first terrifying taste of Heath Ledger's Joker. The hype was instantaneous. Fan reaction videos and trailer breakdowns flooded the internet, building an unprecedented level of organic buzz. Warner Bros. Followed this with a strategic rollout of countless TV spots, each one revealing just a little more of the Joker's chaotic plans, ensuring that The Dark Knight 2008 was an unmissable topic of conversation leading up to its launch. However, the true genius of the marketing was the immersive social media campaign, an alternate reality game called Why So Serious. This was groundbreaking for its time. It involved fans in a digital scavenger hunt across the internet and in real-world cities, recruiting them as henchmen for the Joker. Participants solved puzzles, unlocked exclusive clips, and were even sent on missions to bakeries to retrieve cakes with ringing cell phones inside. This level of interactive marketing created a deeply personal connection to the film, making fans feel like they were part of the story. By the time the cast embarked on their global press tour and the glamorous premiere event took place, the anticipation had reached a fever pitch. The result was a record-breaking opening weekend for the theatrical release, proving that innovative, fan-focused marketing could be just as powerful as a traditional ad blitz. This masterful campaign ensured that the worldwide release of The Dark Knight 2008 was not just a movie opening, but a global cultural event. Its legacy lives on today, as its eventual streaming debut on platforms like HBO Max continues to attract new generations of fans, all drawn in by the enduring legend of this perfectly marketed film. From an investor's perspective, the marketing and distribution of a blockbuster film is a high-stakes bet, a second, equally large investment made on top of the production budget. This is the world of the P&A budget, which stands for prints and advertising. For The Dark Knight 2008, this investment was colossal. The P&A budget encompasses all costs required to market the film and physically distribute it to theaters worldwide. Based on industry benchmarks for a film of this scale, the P&A budget for The Dark Knight 2008 was likely in the range of an estimated $150 million, a figure nearly as large as the production budget itself. This massive spend was a clear signal of the studio's immense confidence in the film's commercial potential. They weren't just hoping for a hit, they were deploying the financial firepower necessary to engineer a global box office juggernaut. This level of spending was on par with or even exceeded competitors like Marvel's Iron Man that same year, showing a clear intent to dominate the market. Now, let's analyze the financial objective of this enormous spend. Achieving a positive marketing spend ROI. The first hurdle in this process is the theatrical revenue split. It's a common misconception that studios keep all the box office money. In reality, they split it roughly 50-50 with theater owners. So when The Dark Knight 2008 grossed a phenomenal $534 million domestically, the studio's actual take-home share was approximately $290 million. The $150 million P&A budget was spent to generate that return. A simple calculation reveals the initial power of the campaign. Key stat. With a $150 million P&A budget and a marketing-driven domestic studio share of $280 million, the estimated domestic theatrical marketing spend ROI is approximately 1.87x. This means that for every dollar Warner Bros. Spent on U.S. marketing, they made back about $187 from domestic theaters alone. While a positive return, the real story unfolds when you factor in international revenue and downstream monetization. The primary expenses within this P&A budget are the media buying costs. This is the money spent on placing those thousands of TV spots, running full-page newspaper ads and buying digital banner ads. In 2008, television was still king, and a significant portion, perhaps 80 million of the P&A budget would have been allocated to securing primetime commercial slots. The other major cost is the P&A, prints. This refers to the cost of creating and shipping the physical 35mm IMAX film prints to thousands of theaters globally, a cost that could easily run into the tens of millions. Finally, the distributor, which in this case was the studio itself, Warner Bros., charges distribution fees for its services, typically ranging from 8% to 15% of the gross revenues, which is accounted for in the overall financial modeling. Every single one of these expenses was a calculated investment designed to maximize the final marketing spend ROI. The viral campaign, while creatively brilliant, was also financially astute. It generated millions of dollars in earned media, free publicity from news outlets, and organic social media sharing, which massively amplified the impact of the paid media buying costs. The ultimate goal of this entire operation is to maximize the profit margin per screen. By creating an event atmosphere, the marketing campaign ensured that theaters were packed for weeks, not just the opening weekend. A sold-out IMAX screen showing The Dark Knight 2008 was generating significantly more revenue for the studio than a half-empty screen showing a competitor film. The exceptional marketing spend ROI is the direct result of a campaign that didn't just advertise a movie, but created an urgent, unmissable cultural moment. This initial theatrical success then set the stage for highly lucrative home video sales and streaming licensing deals, ensuring that the initial $150 million investment in the P&A budget would continue to pay dividends for more than a decade, contributing massively to the film's overall cumulative earnings. Fans of Iron Man's genre-defining twists and Quantum of Solace's heart-pounding action will find The Dark Knight 2008 bridges both worlds, delivering blockbuster storytelling moments that rival franchise-level hits now streaming on Netflix, HBO Max, or Disney+. No film exists in a vacuum, and to truly appreciate the impact of this movie, we have to look at its competition. The summer of 2008 was a battlefield of blockbusters, a clash of titans that redefined the modern cinematic landscape. Today, we're doing a competitive deep dive, making franchise comparisons and looking at similar movies that fought for box office supremacy. We'll compare with other films in the genre to see what made The Dark Knight 2008 stand out and become one of the all-time great fan favorites. The most direct and significant box office competition for The Dark Knight 2008 was without a doubt Iron Man. Released just 2 months earlier in May 2008, Iron Man was the film that kicked off the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe. On the surface, they are both superhero films, but their tones could not be more different. Iron Man was witty, charismatic, and optimistic, driven by the magnetic performance of Robert Downey Jr. It was a high-tech action comedy that left audiences feeling exhilarated. The Dark Knight 2008, on the other hand, was a dark, gritty, and psychologically complex crime thriller. It was less interested in fun and more interested in exploring the moral decay of a city. This contrast is what makes the comparison with other films so fascinating. While Iron Man was a phenomenal success that set the stage for a decade of interconnected storytelling, The Dark Knight 2008 proved that audiences were also hungry for standalone, auteur-driven comic book films that felt more like serious adult dramas. Both are considered top films in their genre, but they represent two wildly different and equally valid approaches to the material. Another major genre rival in 2008 was the James Bond film, Quantum of Solace. As a direct sequel to the highly successful reboot Casino Royale, it was a guaranteed box office hit. The Bond franchise and Nolan's Batman films share some DNA, both feature billionaire playboys with high-tech gadgets who operate in a world of espionage and action. However, where Quantum of Solace was a globe-trotting spy thriller focused on revenge, The Dark Knight 2008 was a claustrophobic urban drama focused on ideology. The action in Bond is slick and stylized. The action in Nolan's film is brutal and grounded. For fans of practical stunt work and intense chase sequences, both films delivered, but the thematic depth of The Dark Knight 2008 gave it a critical and cultural edge. This is a key reason why, in many franchise comparisons, Nolan's trilogy is often discussed in the same breath as classic cinematic works, not just as popcorn entertainment. Beyond its direct 2008 competitors, there are other similar movies that share the film's DNA and are now beloved fan favorites available on streaming. The most obvious is Michael Mann's 1995 crime epic Heat. Christopher Nolan has openly cited Heat as a major influence, and the parallels are undeniable. The dynamic between Al Pacino's obsessive detective and Robert De Niro's brilliant, philosophical thief is the clear blueprint for the relationship between Batman and the Joker. Both films are sprawling, atmospheric portraits of a city and the lonely, dedicated men who operate on opposite sides of the law. For anyone who loves the tactical, real-world feel of The Dark Knight 2008, Heat is an absolute must-watch. Another film that comes to mind is David Fincher's C7N, a dark and relentlessly grim detective story that shares the same sense of dread and a villain who is always 2 steps ahead. These comparisons show that The Dark Knight 2008 was not just competing with other superhero movies. It was aiming to be ranked among the top films in the crime genre as a whole. From a market analyst's perspective, launching a $185 million film into a competitive summer landscape is a calculated strategic maneuver, heavily reliant on financial modeling and competitive intelligence. The core objective is to achieve the highest possible market share projection, which is the percentage of the total available box office revenue a film can capture during its theatrical window. In the summer of 2008, the two titans fighting for market dominance were The Dark Knight 2008 and Iron Man. Let's conduct a budget versus performance analysis of the competition. Iron Man was produced for an efficient $140 million and grossed an impressive $585 million worldwide. This set a high benchmark revenue and a strong ROI of over 4x its production budget. The other major competitor, Quantum of Solace, had a larger budget of around $200 million and grossed $589 million worldwide, a solid but less spectacular return. Warner Bros. Analysts, when setting their market share projection for The Dark Knight 2008, would have looked at these numbers and seen both a threat and an opportunity. The threat was clear. The market was already being served by two high-quality, big-budget action films. This leads to a saturation risk assessment. Was there enough room in the market for a third massive blockbuster? The risk was that audiences might feel franchise fatigue, even with different characters, and that the box office pie would be split three ways, preventing any single film from achieving breakout success. An oversaturated market can be devastating, as it drives up marketing costs while cannibalizing ticket sales, which can crush a film's risk-adjusted ROI. However, the studio correctly identified a key market inefficiency. Both Iron Man and Quantum of Solace, while successful, were fundamentally escapist action films. There was an underserved segment of the market hungry for a more serious, intellectually stimulating blockbuster. Key stat: the typical superhero genre ROI average is around 2.53x production cost, but by positioning itself as a prestige crime drama, The Dark Knight 2008 was projected to capture an additional 10–15% of the adult male market share from non-genre films. The studio's market share projection was likely not just to compete with Iron Man, but to absorb its audience and capture a new one. Their strategy was to mitigate the saturation risk assessment by differentiating the product so radically that it didn't feel like just another summer action movie. They were selling it as a serious cinematic event, a strategy that allowed it to transcend its genre and appeal to a much broader demographic. The comparative revenue tells the story of this strategy's brilliant success. The Dark Knight 2008 didn't just compete, it dominated. It grossed over $1 billion worldwide, nearly doubling the performance of its closest rivals. The budget versus performance analysis is staggering. On a $185 million budget, a $1 billion gross represents an ROI of over 5.4x, far exceeding the typical genre ROI average. This outcome demonstrates a masterful reading of the market. The studio understood that the saturation risk assessment was not about the number of films, but about the type of films. By offering a product that was tonally unique, they carved out a massive and highly profitable new space in the market. The final risk-adjusted ROI for Warner Bros. Was astronomical. They took a huge gamble by releasing such a dark and complex film in a crowded summer season. But by correctly forecasting their potential market share projection and understanding how to stand out from the competition, they didn't just win the summer of 2008, they created a financial and cultural landmark. From meme references of its most iconic scenes to viral fan clips that sparked massive social media reactions, The Dark Knight 2008's cultural impact rivals any competitor's pop culture influence, creating fan engagement that lives on through TikTok clips and Reddit theories. Some movies are just movies. You watch them, you enjoy them, and you move on. But a select few transcend the screen and become a permanent part of our shared cultural language. They become a source of memes, inside jokes, and endless debate. The Dark Knight 2008 is one of those films. Today we're diving into the incredible legacy of the film, exploring its most viral moments, iconic fan quotes, and the endless stream of fan-driven content that has kept it at the forefront of the pop culture conversation for over a decade. The single greatest engine of The Dark Knight 2008's enduring pop culture influence is, without a doubt, Heath Ledger's Joker. Nearly every line he delivers in the film has become an iconic, endlessly repeatable fan quote. Why so serious? Do I really look like a guy with a plan? And it's not about the money, it's about sending a message have all become legendary meme references. These quotes are so powerful and philosophically resonant that they've been used in millions of pieces of online content, from serious political commentary to lighthearted TikTok clips. The image of the Joker burning a mountain of cash is one of the most enduring viral moments in modern cinema, a perfect visual metaphor that has been adapted and remixed countless times. This constant presence in online culture ensures that new audiences are always being introduced to the film, sparked by the internet trends it created. The fan reactions to the film also fueled a universe of discussion and debate that thrives to this day on platforms like Reddit. The Reddit theories surrounding The Dark Knight 2008 are legendary. Fans have spent years dissecting every frame, searching for hidden Easter eggs and clues. The most popular theory, as we've discussed, is that the Joker is a disgruntled ex-military operative, a theory supported by his tactical genius and psychological prowess. Other Reddit theories debate the identity of the Joker before the events of the film, or whether Alfred ultimately lied to Bruce about Rachel's final letter. This deep level of analysis in the creation of fan-driven content is a sign of a film that has deeply captured the public imagination. The narrative is so rich and the characters so complex that it invites endless interpretation, which is the lifeblood of any lasting fandom. Beyond the memes and theories, the film contains a treasure trove of fun facts that fans love to share. For example, the iconic pencil trick scene was a real stunt performed by Heath Ledger with a stuntman, with the pencil being removed via CGI in the final frames for safety. Another great piece of trivia is that Michael Caine was so genuinely terrified by Heath Ledger's first appearance as the Joker on set that he completely forgot his lines. These behind-the-scenes stories add to the film's mystique and are the kind of shareable content that keeps social media reactions buzzing. The combination of its unforgettable dialogue, its complex philosophical questions, and its compelling characters created a perfect storm of cultural references. The legacy of The Dark Knight 2008 is not just in its box office numbers, but in its ability to generate an endless conversation, a series of viral moments and fan reactions that have cemented its status as an undisputed classic. From a digital marketing and investment perspective, a film's cultural impact is not an abstract concept. It is a measurable, monetizable asset that can generate enormous financial returns. The organic buzz surrounding The Dark Knight 2008 created a tidal wave of value for the studio, which can be analyzed through two key financial lenses: the direct returns from unpaid marketing, and the indirect value added to the brand's advertising ecosystem. The first and most powerful concept here is viral marketing ROI. Every single fan-made meme, every TikTok clip with millions of views, and every viral tweet quoting the Joker represents free high-impact advertising for the film. A studio would have to spend tens of millions of dollars in paid media to achieve the same level of reach and cultural penetration that this organic, fan-driven content provided for free. This is the definition of a positive viral marketing ROI. The initial investment in making a great, quote-worthy film pays off exponentially in the form of unpaid, highly authentic promotion. This leads to a direct revenue boost from cultural traction. When a film is constantly present in the cultural conversation, it stays top of mind for consumers, which directly drives long-term sales of Blu-rays, digital downloads, and merchandise. Key stat: a single sustained viral trend related to a movie can generate billions of unpaid impressions online, which can be conservatively estimated to have an earned media value of $5 million to $15 million, effectively subsidizing the official marketing budget. This massive level of organic engagement also has a profound indirect financial benefit, which we can call the CPM uplift from engagement. CPM, or cost per mil, is the price an advertiser pays for 1,000 views of an ad. Platforms like YouTube and Facebook use algorithms that favor highly engaging content. Because official content related to The Dark Knight 2008, trailers, clips, and related fan content generate such high levels of likes, comments, and shares, these platforms' algorithms view it as premium content. This means that when Warner Bros. Runs paid ads on these platforms, or when a partnered influencer posts sponsored content, the platform is more likely to serve those ads to a highly engaged audience, making the ad space more valuable. This creates a CPM uplift from engagement, where advertisers are willing to pay a higher price to place their ads alongside content related to the film. This effect also boosts the ad revenue for creators who make content about the film, creating a thriving ecosystem that further promotes the IP. This heightened cultural status also massively increases the film's brand partnership value. A film that is just a movie is a difficult sell for a brand partnership, but a film that is a cultural phenomenon becomes an incredibly attractive partner. Major brands in sectors like automotive, fashion, or consumer electronics would pay a premium to associate themselves with the cool, prestigious, and universally recognized brand of The Dark Knight 2008. A potential brand partnership value for a tie-in campaign could range from an estimated $1 million to as high as $5 million for a major global brand. Furthermore, this cultural dominance allows the studio to command a significant IP licensing premium. When a character like the Joker becomes a cultural icon, the licensing fee for a toy manufacturer or a t-shirt company goes up. The studio can charge a higher licensed product royalty because the product is more likely to sell. This is a direct form of trending monetization, where the studio converts the heat of a viral moment into a higher percentage point on a licensing deal. Ultimately, the incredible viral marketing ROI and the sustained CPM uplift from engagement created by the fans transformed The Dark Knight 2008 from a simple film into a blue-chip cultural asset, generating hundreds of millions in direct and indirect value for decades. From Oscars nominations for its outstanding performances to Golden Globe wins that sparked massive awards buzz, The Dark Knight 2008 as critical acclaim rivals any competitor's film festival highlights, earning a stellar Rotten Tomatoes score and glowing audience ratings across all streaming platforms. While fan love and box office numbers tell one side of the story, the respect of critics and the recognition of awards bodies tell another. The Dark Knight 2008 was not just a commercial juggernaut. It was a critical darling, a rare blockbuster that was also hailed as a cinematic masterpiece. Today, we're looking at the wave of nominations and wins that cemented the film's legacy, from the glowing critic reviews to the unforgettable and emotional awards season that followed. The moment The Dark Knight 2008 premiered, the critic reviews were overwhelmingly positive, bordering on ecstatic. Legendary critics like Roger Ebert hailed it as a profound and intelligent crime drama, comparing it to films like The Godfather. On the popular review aggregator site Rotten Tomatoes, the film landed a certified fresh 94% Rotten Tomatoes score, a rating that is almost unheard of for a superhero blockbuster. This near-universal praise from the critical community immediately generated intense awards buzz. The conversation was no longer about whether it was a good comic book movie, but whether it was one of the best films of the year, period. This critical reception was a crucial first step in positioning The Dark Knight 2008 as a serious awards contender. Just as importantly, the audience scores mirrored the critical praise. The film received an A cinema score on its opening night, and to this day, it holds a stunningly high 94% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes and is ranked as the 3rd top-rated movie of all time by IMDb users. This rare alignment between critics and the general public proved that the film was a true 4-quadrant success, appealing to everyone from casual moviegoers to the most discerning cinephiles. These glowing audience ratings ensured that the film had incredible legs at the box office, as positive word of mouth spread like wildfire. The awards season that followed was a victory lap for the film, culminating in a historic and emotional night at the Academy Awards. The Dark Knight 2008 received a total of 8 Oscars nominations, including Best Cinematography, Best Film Editing, and Best Visual Effects. But the most significant and talked-about nomination was for Heath Ledger as Best Supporting Actor. His transformative performance as the Joker was universally hailed as one of the greatest of all time. He had already swept the precursor awards, securing Golden Globe wins and awards from the Screen Actors Guild and BAFTA. His posthumous Oscar win was a deeply moving moment that solidified his performance in the annals of cinema history. While many fans and critics believe the film was unfairly snubbed for a Best Picture nomination, a controversy that led the Academy to expand the category from 5 to 10 nominees the following year, the award-winning performances and technical recognition cemented The Dark Knight 2008's status as a landmark achievement and one of the most beloved must-watch films of its generation. From an investor's perspective, awards and critical acclaim are far more than just trophies and bragging rights. They are powerful financial instruments that can dramatically increase a film's profitability. This value can be understood through 2 core concepts: the immediate cash injection from an awards win and the long-term value added by prestige. The first part of this financial equation is the significant upfront investment required, known as the award campaign cost. Studios don't just passively wait for nominations, they actively campaign for them. A For Your Consideration campaign is a sophisticated and expensive marketing effort targeted specifically at awards voters. This includes hosting private screenings, taking out ads in industry trade publications like Variety and The Hollywood Reporter, and sending out high-quality DVD screeners. For a major film with multiple nominations in play, a full-scale award campaign cost can range from an estimated $5 million to over $15 million. For The Dark Knight 2008, with a major push for Heath Ledger and multiple technical categories, Warner Bros. Likely invested a significant amount, perhaps in the $10 million range, to ensure their masterpiece received the recognition it deserved. This spending is a calculated investment designed to achieve a massive return, which brings us to our first core theme, the ROI multiplier. An Oscar win, especially in a major category, acts as a powerful ROI multiplier on the film's initial investments. This is most clearly seen in the post-award revenue boost. Historically, a Best Picture nomination can add an estimated 20 million to a film's domestic box office as audiences flock to see the nominated films. A win can add even more. While The Dark Knight 2008 was already a massive hit, Heath Ledger's Oscar win served as a massive free marketing event. It created a renewed wave of interest in the film, driving significant DVD and Blu-ray sales in the months following the ceremony. Keystat, a major acting Oscar win, often correlates with a 20–30% increase in home entertainment sales in the quarter following the awards, representing millions in high-margin revenue. This award-driven revenue is a direct return on the campaign investment. The Oscar win is essentially a globally televised, universally respected seal of approval that says, "This is a must-own film," acting as a powerful ROI multiplier on every dollar spent on production and marketing. Beyond the immediate cash bump, the long-term value is even more significant. This is where the critical acclaim multiplier comes into play. Strong reviews and prestigious nominations act as a critical acclaim multiplier across all of the film's future revenue streams. For example, it allows the studio to engage in prestige pricing. When negotiating streaming monetization deals with platforms like Netflix or international distributors, a film with a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes and 8 Oscar nominations can command a significantly higher licensing fee than a similarly successful blockbuster with mediocre reviews. The critical acclaim is a mark of quality and longevity, assuring buyers that the film is an evergreen asset that will attract subscribers for years. This can result in a streaming royalty bump of an estimated 15–25% over a non-acclaimed film. The critical acclaim multiplier essentially elevates the film's status from a disposable product to a piece of cinematic art, which dramatically increases its long-term lifetime value, LTV. The initial investment in making a high-quality film, combined with the cost of an awards campaign, is magnified many times over, ensuring that the film doesn't just make money, but becomes a blue-chip asset in the studio's library for decades to come as The Dark Knight 2008 cements its film legacy with franchise potential that rivals any competitor's universe expansion. Fans speculate on sequels and spin-off ideas, while the director's next projects and upcoming movies hint at a thrilling future. After the credits roll and the dust settles, what is left? For a film like this one, the answer is a legacy that has fundamentally reshaped the landscape of modern cinema. The Dark Knight 2008 wasn't just a movie. It was a milestone. In our final segment, we look to the future, exploring the film's incredible franchise potential, the fan anticipation for what could have been, and the lasting cinematic impact that continues to influence filmmakers today. The immediate legacy of The Dark Knight 2008 was the greenlighting of its direct sequel, 2012's The Dark Knight 2008 Rises. The ending of the second film, with Batman as a hunted fugitive, created immense fan anticipation and left the door wide open for a concluding chapter. While that film definitively ended Christopher Nolan and Christian Bale's trilogy, the richness of the world they built has led to endless fan speculation about potential sequels and spin-off ideas. One of the most popular rumored plotlines that fans have discussed for years is a prequel film centered on Heath Ledger's Joker. His backstory is deliberately left a mystery in the film, with multiple conflicting stories about how he got his scars. A dark, gritty origin story, perhaps in the vein of 2019's Joker, is a spin-off idea that fans have clamored for, though most agree that recasting the iconic role would be an impossible task. Other fan theories have explored the potential for a universe expansion following the events of The Dark Knight 2008 Rises. With John Blake, played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, discovering the Batcave at the end of the trilogy, many fans have hoped for a sequel or a series following his journey as the new protector of Gotham, perhaps as Nightwing or a new version of Batman. This potential for a continuing franchise roadmap is a testament to the strength of the world building. The characters and the city feel so real that audiences are not ready to let them go. While there are no official plans for such sequels, the discussion and desire from the fan community remain incredibly strong, showcasing the immense franchise potential embedded in this IP. Beyond direct continuations, the ultimate film legacy of The Dark Knight 2008 is its profound influence on the entire superhero genre. After 2008, dark and gritty became the dominant tone for many comic book adaptations, from Zack Snyder's DC films like Man of Steel to a certain extent, even Marvel's more serious entries like Captain America. The Winter Soldier, the film proved that audiences were ready for mature, complex themes in their blockbusters. Its success gave directors the confidence to take risks and to treat comic book source material with the seriousness of a classic drama. As for the visionary director himself, Christopher Nolan's director's next projects after the trilogy, like Inception, Interstellar, and Oppenheimer, have all become major cinematic events in their own right, with fan anticipation for his upcoming movies being a genre unto itself. The cinematic impact of The Dark Knight 2008 is immeasurable. It elevated the superhero movie from a genre to an art form and set a new standard for blockbuster filmmaking that is still being chased to this day. From a final investor's standpoint, we now move to the ultimate financial summary, a projection of the total long-term value of this incredible asset. A single successful film is a great investment, but a successful franchise is a cornerstone of a studio's entire financial stability. To understand this, we must conduct a cumulative yield analysis of the entire Nolan Batman IP. First, let's project the long-term franchise ROI. The entire trilogy was produced for a combined estimated budget of around $585 million, 150 M for Begins, $185 M for TDK, $250 M for Rises. The worldwide box office for the three films was just shy of $2.5 billion. After the theatrical revenue split, this represents a studio share of approximately $125 billion. That alone gives a theatrical ROI of over 2x. However, this is just the beginning. A complete cumulative yield analysis must include all other revenue streams over a 15-20-year period. Home entertainment, DVD, Blu-ray, digital, which for a franchise this popular could easily add another $1 billion in high-margin revenue. Global television and streaming rights, which would add hundreds of millions more over its lifetime. And merchandise, which, as we've discussed, is a massive and continuous source of income. When you sum all these legacy revenue streams, the total revenue generated by this trilogy is likely in the $5 billion range. This would result in a long-term franchise ROI of an estimated 7x to 9x the initial production investment, a phenomenal return that highlights the power of successful franchise filmmaking. This brings us to the concept of the IP lifecycle value. This is an estimation of the total monetary worth of the intellectual property itself. For Nolan's Batman universe, the IP lifecycle value considers not just the existing films, but all potential future monetization. This includes the value of the brand in attracting subscribers to a streaming service like HBO Max, its use in video games like the Arkham series, which were heavily influenced by the films, and its potential for future adaptations. A conservative estimate would place the total IP lifecycle value of this specific iteration of Batman in the range of $3 billion to $5 billion. This value is achieved by using each successful installment as an ROI multiplier for the next. The success of Batman Begins de-risked the investment in The Dark Knight, 2008. The monumental success of The Dark Knight 2008 then acted as a massive ROI multiplier for The Dark Knight 2008, Rises, virtually guaranteeing it would be a billion-dollar film before a single frame was shot. Key stat: a successful blockbuster franchise can expect a long-term franchise lifecycle profitability that exceeds the initial production investment by a factor of 5 to 10 over a 20-year period. Of course, any forward-looking analysis must also consider the sequel investment risk. While the fan demand for more stories in this universe is high, the financial risks are significant. Firstly, budgets would continue to escalate, likely exceeding $300 million for a fourth film. Secondly, there is audience fatigue and the immense creative risk of trying to continue a story after its perfect conclusion and without its key actors and director. A failed sequel or spin-off could not only lose hundreds of millions of dollars, but could also damage the pristine legacy of the original trilogy, which in turn could harm the long-term IP lifecycle value. This is why a full cumulative yield analysis must be tempered with caution. The studio's decision to leave the trilogy as a self-contained masterpiece, rather than risk diluting it, can be seen as a financially prudent one. They chose to protect the value of their proven high-performing asset rather than risk it for an uncertain return. In conclusion, The Dark Knight 2008 was not just a film. It was the engine at the heart of a multi-billion-dollar financial enterprise. It was an ROI multiplier that elevated an entire studio property into the stratosphere, and its final cumulative yield analysis cements it as one of the most successful and profitable cinematic investments of all time. And that's the final breakdown on this brilliant financial strategy. Subscribe for more deep dives into how movies make money with a small budget. We're your source for indie box office analysis and movie budget breakdowns. What indie movie should we analyze next? Let us know.